Lila was only 4 years old the night everything changed. It was early December, and Christmas decorations hung everywhere in Chicago. Colorful lights wrapped around street lamps. Shop windows displayed toy trains and stuffed animals. The air smelled like roasted chestnuts from the corner vendor, and fresh snow covered the sidewalks like a white blanket. Lila loved Christmas. She loved the lights, the music, and especially her Santa hat, the red one with the fluffy white ball at the end. That evening, Mama had taken her to run errands. They walked through the cold streets together, Mama holding her hand tight. Lila carried her favorite teddy bear, the one with the red ribbon around its neck that Mama had tied for her last Christmas. "Stay close, baby," Mama said, pulling her coat tighter. They cut through an alley behind an old bakery, a shortcut Mama used sometimes. The alley was dark and quiet, with only a dim streetlight at the far end. Halfway through, Mama stopped suddenly. "Oh, Lila, where's your Santa hat? Did you leave it at the store?" Lila touched her head. Her hat was gone. She must have dropped it. "I'm sorry, Mama," she whispered. Mama smiled and kissed her forehead. "It's okay, sweetheart. Run back and get it quickly. I'll wait right here. Don't talk to strangers and come straight back." Lila nodded and ran back the way they came, her small boots crunching in the snow. She found her Santa hat near the bakery door, picked it up, and pulled it onto her head. The fuzzy ball bounced as she ran. She felt proud. She was a big girl who could get her own hat. But when Lila turned the corner back into the alley, she froze. A man in a black mask stood over Mama. Everything happened so fast. The man's hand moved. Mama gasped a terrible, hurt sound. Then the man ran away, disappearing into the darkness. Mama fell against the wall and slid down to the snowy ground. "Mama!" Lila screamed. She ran to her mother, her teddy bear dropping in the snow. Mama's hand pressed against her side. Dark red blood seeped between her fingers, staining her coat. Her face was pale, her breathing quick and shallow. "Lila, baby." Mama's voice was weak. "Go, get help." "Mama, don't go to sleep," Lila cried, tears streaming down her cold cheeks. She grabbed her teddy bear and pressed it against Mama's hand, as if it could make everything better. "Please don't go to sleep." But Mama's eyes were closing. Lila looked around desperately. The alley was empty. No cars passed on the street. No one was there to help. Panic filled her chest. She couldn't let Mama die. She had to find someone, anyone. Lila ran out of the alley, her little legs pumping as fast as they could. Snow fell into her eyes. Her Santa hat nearly flew off. She didn't know where she was going. She just ran toward the street lights, toward the Christmas decorations, toward people. She turned a corner and crashed straight into someone's legs. Strong hands caught her before she fell. Lila looked up through her tears at a tall man in a black coat. He had dark hair and serious eyes. He looked important and a little scary, but Lila didn't care. She grabbed onto his coat with both hands. "Sir," she gasped, her voice breaking. "Sir, my mom was stabbed in an alley." The man went completely still. His face, which had been hard and cold like a stone statue, changed. The color drained from his cheeks. His dark eyes went wide, and for just a second he looked shocked, like Lila had just told him the world was ending. His mouth opened slightly. He stared down at her like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Then his jaw tightened. His face became focused and sharp. He knelt down in the snow so fast that his knee hit the ground with a thud. Now he was looking straight into Lila's eyes, and his voice came out quiet but firm. "Take me to her." Those 4 words weren't a question. They were a command, but somehow they made Lila feel less scared. This man was going to help. She could tell. "This way. Please hurry." Lila turned and started running back, looking over her shoulder to make sure he followed. The man followed her quickly. His long legs covered the distance fast. When they reached the alley, Lila pointed to where Mama lay against the wall. The man moved fast. He knelt beside Mama and looked at her wound. His face was calm, like he'd seen this before and knew exactly what to do. "Rosalie," Mama whispered weakly. "My daughter." "Lila. She's safe." "She's right here," the man said firmly. He pulled out his phone and spoke into it. East alley behind Moretti's bakery. Stab wound left side. Bring the discreet team. 5 minutes. Then he took off his expensive coat and pressed it against Mama's side. Mama made a small hurt sound, but the man kept pressing. You're going to be okay, he told Mama. Help is coming. Lila stood watching, clutching her teddy bear so tight her fingers hurt. She wanted to run to Mama, but something told her to stay back and let the man work. The man looked at her. What's your name? Lila, she whispered. I'm Alessandro. Your mom is going to be okay. Do you understand me? Lila nodded, even though she was still scared. I promise, Alessandro said, looking straight into her eyes. Soon, a black van pulled into the alley. 2 men jumped out with a stretcher and bags. They moved quickly, like they'd done this many times before. They checked Mama, put bandages on her, and carefully lifted her onto the stretcher. Lila took a step forward. Mama! Alessandro stood up and gently picked Lila up before she could run after the van. She was surprised by how carefully he held her, like she was something precious that might break. Your mom needs a doctor right now, Alessandro said quietly. But I'll take you somewhere safe and warm, and tomorrow you'll see her. I promise. Lila buried her face in his shoulder and cried. All the fear and terror came out in big, shaking sobs. Alessandro didn't tell her to stop crying. He just held her and let her cry. He carried her to a shiny black car parked on the street. The inside was warm and smelled like leather. Alessandro buckled her into the back seat and gave her his coat to wrap around herself. As they drove through the snowy streets, Lila watched the Christmas lights blur past the window. Her Santa hat sat crooked on her head. Her teddy bear was still clutched in her arms. Everything felt like a bad dream. But the man, Alessandro, had promised Mama would be okay. And somehow, even though Lila had just met him, she believed him. The car climbed higher and higher until they reached a tall building made of glass. Alessandro carried Lila inside, past a doorman who nodded respectfully, and into an elevator that went up and up and up. When the doors opened, they stepped into the most beautiful apartment Lila had ever seen. Everything was clean and shiny. Huge windows showed the whole city sparkling below, covered in snow and Christmas lights. Alessandro set Lila down gently on a big leather couch. Are you hungry? Lila shook her head. She was too worried about Mama to think about food. Alessandro nodded like he understood. He disappeared into another room and came back with a soft blanket and a pillow. You should rest. It's been a scary night. Will Mama really be okay? Lila asked in a tiny voice. Alessandro knelt down in front of her again, the way he had in the snow. I have the best doctors helping her right now. They're fixing her up, and she's going to be fine. You were very brave tonight, Lila. You saved your mom by finding me. Lila hadn't thought of it that way. She'd just been scared. But maybe Alessandro was right. Maybe she had saved Mama. Can I see her tomorrow? Lila asked. Yes. First thing tomorrow morning. Alessandro helped Lila lie down on the couch with the blanket tucked around her. She hugged her teddy bear close. Even though she was in a strange place with a man she'd just met, Lila felt safe. As she drifted off to sleep, she heard Alessandro talking quietly on his phone in the other room. His voice was different now, harder, colder, dangerous. Find out who did this, he said. I want names by morning. Lila woke up to sunlight streaming through giant windows. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. This wasn't her small bedroom with the purple curtains. This wasn't Mama's bed where she sometimes slept when she had bad dreams. Then everything came rushing back. The alley. The man in the mask. Mama bleeding in the snow. The scary man named Alessandro who had promised to help. Lila sat up quickly, clutching her teddy bear. She was still on the big leather couch, wrapped in the soft gray blanket. Her Santa hat had fallen off during the night and lay beside her. Mama, she whispered. She's awake. Lila jumped. Alessandro stood near the windows, holding a phone to his ear. He looked different in the morning light. He'd changed into a clean white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His hair was still perfectly neat. He looked tired, like maybe he hadn't slept at all. I have to go, Alessandro said into the phone. Keep me updated every hour. He hung up and walked over to Lila. Good morning. Are you hungry? Lila's stomach growled, answering for her. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Alessandro almost smiled. Come on, let's get you some breakfast. He led her into a huge kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Everything was shiny silver and black marble. Lila had never seen a kitchen so clean and fancy. Alessandro opened the refrigerator and stared inside like he was looking at a puzzle he didn't know how to solve. I don't usually cook, he admitted. Do you like cereal? Lila nodded. He pulled out a box of plain cereal and some milk. He poured them into a bowl. Too much cereal, not enough milk, and set it on the counter. Then he seemed to realize the counter was too high for her. Alessandro picked Lila up and set her on a tall stool. She had to sit on her knees to reach the bowl properly. He stood nearby, watching her eat like he was making sure she was doing it right. Can I see Mama now? Lila asked between bites. Soon. The doctor said she needs to rest a little longer. But she's doing much better. The surgery went well. Surgery? Lila didn't know that word. It means the doctors fixed the hurt place. She's going to be okay. Lila felt a tiny bit of the heavy weight lift from her chest. Mama was okay. Alessandro had promised, and he'd kept his promise. After breakfast, Alessandro seemed unsure what to do next. He checked his phone 3 times in 2 minutes. He looked at Lila, then at his watch, then back at Lila. Do you need anything? He asked. I need to brush my teeth, Lila said. Mama always made her brush her teeth after breakfast. Right. Teeth. Alessandro looked relieved to have a task. He led her to a bathroom that was bigger than Lila's entire bedroom at home. Everything was white marble and gold fixtures. There were 2 sinks, a huge bathtub, and a shower with glass doors. I don't have a toothbrush, Lila said quietly. Alessandro frowned. I'll have someone bring supplies. For now, just rinse your mouth with water. While Lila washed her face and hands in the sink, she had to stand on her tiptoes to reach. Alessandro made another phone call. I need children's items delivered to my penthouse. Immediately. He paused, listening. Yes, children's items. Clothes for a 4-year-old girl, toiletries, toys. I don't know what size, just bring several options. And food. Things children eat. No, I don't know what children eat. Figure it out. He hung up looking frustrated. Lila dried her hands on a towel, so soft it felt like a cloud. Are we going to see Mama now? Alessandro checked his watch. Yes. Get your coat. Lila's coat was still damp from the snow last night. Alessandro frowned at it, but helped her put it on anyway. He put on his own coat, a different one, since the other was covered in blood, and they took the elevator down to his car. The city looked different in the daytime. The Christmas decorations that had seemed so magical last night now looked ordinary. People walked past carrying shopping bags and coffee cups, going about their normal day like nothing bad had happened. But something bad had happened. Mama had almost died. They drove for about 20 minutes until they reached a building that didn't look like a hospital. It was just a regular-looking office building made of brown brick. No ambulances outside. No emergency signs. This isn't a hospital, Lila said. No, it's safer this way. The doctors here work for me. Alessandro led her inside and up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was quiet and smelled like cleaning supplies. He stopped outside a door and knelt down to Lila's level. Your mom is going to look a little different, he said gently. She has tubes helping her feel better and bandages where she was hurt. But she's okay. Don't be scared. Lila nodded, her heart pounding. Alessandro opened the door. Mama lay in a white bed in a small, clean room. She had a tube in her arm connected to a bag of clear liquid. Bandages wrapped around her middle under her hospital gown. Her face was pale, but her eyes were open. Mama. Lila ran to the bed. Baby. Mama's voice was weak, but full of love. She held out her arms, and Lila carefully climbed up beside her, being gentle around the tubes and bandages. Mama hugged her tight, crying happy tears. Oh, baby, I was so worried about you. Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I'm okay, Mama. The man helped us. Alessandro. Mama looked up at Alessandro, who stood near the door with his hands in his pockets. Her expression was complicated, grateful but also wary and confused. Thank you, Mama said quietly, for saving my life, and for taking care of Lila. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You don't owe me anything, Alessandro said. His voice was different when he talked to Mama, softer, more careful. But we need to talk. About what happened. About why you were attacked. Mama's face went tight with fear. She pulled Lila closer. Not now, Alessandro added quickly, seeing her reaction. You need to rest. But soon. The people who did this, they don't leave loose ends. What does that mean? Mama whispered. Alessandro's jaw tightened. It means they'll come back to finish what they started. Unless I stop them first. Lila didn't fully understand what they were talking about, but she understood enough. The bad man in the mask might come back. Might try to hurt Mama again. I won't let that happen, Alessandro said, like he could read Lila's thoughts. You're both under my protection now. That means you're safe. Mama looked like she wanted to argue, but she was too tired and hurt. Instead, she just held Lila closer. A doctor came in, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. She checked Mama's bandages and the tubes and wrote things on a clipboard. She needs rest, the doctor said to Alessandro. The wound is healing well, but she lost a lot of blood. She'll need to stay here for at least 3 more days. Alessandro nodded. He looked at Lila. Say goodbye to your mom for now. We'll come back this afternoon. No. Lila clung to Mama. I want to stay. Sweetie, you can't stay here all day, Mama said gently, though tears filled her eyes. Go with Alessandro. He'll keep you safe. I promise I'll be right here when you come back. Lila didn't want to go, but she could see how tired Mama was. She kissed Mama's cheek and climbed down from the bed. I love you, baby, Mama whispered. I love you too, Mama. Alessandro held out his hand. After a moment, Lila took it. His hand was big and warm and rough. Not soft like Mama's hands. As they walked back to the car, Lila looked up at him. Why are you helping us? Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he finally said, and he sounded surprised by his own answer. I really don't know. But he didn't let go of her hand. When they got back to the penthouse, boxes were stacked by the door. Lots and lots of boxes. Alessandro opened them one by one while Lila watched. There were clothes in every size, dresses, pants, sweaters, pajamas. There were toys, dolls, coloring books, stuffed animals. There was a toothbrush with a princess on it, children's shampoo that smelled like strawberries, and even a hairbrush covered in sparkles. Pick what you want, Alessandro said, looking overwhelmed by all the stuff. Lila chose a soft pink sweater and blue pants. Alessandro showed her to a guest bedroom where she could change. The room was bigger than her whole apartment at home, with a bed so high she needed a step stool to climb onto it. When she came back out, Alessandro had made a mess of the living room trying to organize everything. He looked frustrated, like he was used to everything being neat and perfect. Better? He asked. Lila nodded. The new clothes were soft and warm. She felt a little more normal. Alessandro's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, and his face went hard. I'll be right there. He hung up and looked at Lila. For a second, he seemed stuck. He couldn't leave her alone, but he clearly needed to go somewhere. Do you know how to watch TV? He asked. Lila nodded. Alessandro turned on the huge television and found a cartoon channel. He handed Lila the remote like it was made of glass. Stay here. Don't answer the door for anyone. I'll be back in 1 hour. Do you understand? Where are you going? To make sure the bad people can't find you or your mom. Lila's stomach twisted with fear. What if they find you? Something flickered across Alessandro's face, surprise maybe, that she was worried about him. They won't. I promise. After he left, Lila tried to watch cartoons, but she couldn't focus. She kept thinking about Mama in that hospital bed. About the man in the mask. About Alessandro going somewhere dangerous. She hugged her teddy bear and waited. Alessandro returned exactly 1 hour later, like he'd promised. But he looked different, angrier, more tense. He went straight to the kitchen and poured himself a drink. Lila followed him quietly. Did you find the bad people? Alessandro looked down at her, surprised she was there. He set down his glass. I found information. That's almost as good. What information? Alessandro hesitated. Lila was just a child, but she'd seen what happened. She deserved some version of the truth. He sat down at the kitchen table and gestured for Lila to sit too. She climbed onto a chair across from him. The men who hurt your mom, they're part of a bad group of people. Very bad. They hurt people who see things they shouldn't see. What did Mama see? I don't know yet. But whatever it was, they want to make sure she can't tell anyone about it. Lila's eyes filled with tears. Are they going to kill Mama? No. Alessandro's voice was firm and sharp. I won't let that happen. But I need your mom to tell me exactly what she saw. Then I can stop these people for good. When can we ask her? Tomorrow, when she's stronger. That afternoon, Alessandro tried to work from home. He sat at his desk in his office, making phone calls and typing on his computer. But every few minutes, he got up to check on Lila. She was sitting on the living room floor, coloring in one of the new coloring books. She was very quiet, very careful to stay inside the lines. Are you okay? Alessandro asked for the third time. Lila looked up. I miss Mama. Alessandro didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't good with feelings, especially sad ones. We'll see her again soon. Can we bring her something? To make her happy. Alessandro thought about it. What would make her happy? Flowers. Mama loves flowers. That evening, Alessandro took Lila to a flower shop. It was a small place tucked between two bigger stores, warm and bright, and smelling like spring even though it was winter outside. Pick whatever you want, Alessandro told her. Lila walked slowly through the shop, looking at every flower. She finally chose a bouquet of pink and white roses because they reminded her of Mama's favorite dress. The shop owner, an old lady with white hair, smiled at them. What a sweet daughter you have. Alessandro opened his mouth to correct her, but Lila grabbed his hand and smiled up at him. He closed his mouth and just paid for the flowers. In the car, Lila held the bouquet carefully in her lap. Do you have a little girl? She asked. No. Do you have a wife? No. Do you have a mom and dad? Alessandro's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Not anymore. Did they die? Yes. I'm sorry. Lila's voice was very small and sad. Alessandro glanced at her in the rearview mirror. This tiny child, who had just seen her own mother nearly die, was feeling sorry for him. Something twisted in his chest. It was a long time ago, he said quietly. When they got to the medical facility, Mama was sitting up in bed. She looked better, more color in her cheeks, more strength in her eyes. Mama, we brought you flowers. Lila ran to the bed, carefully holding up the bouquet. Oh, baby, they're beautiful. Mama took the flowers and breathed in their smell. Her eyes filled with happy tears. Alessandro stood near the door, watching. The doctor had said Mama was healing well. That was good, because they needed to have a difficult conversation. After Lila had told Mama all about the penthouse and the boxes and the new clothes, Alessandro cleared his throat. Rosalie, we need to talk. About what happened in the alley. Mama's smile faded. She looked at Lila. Sweetie, can you go sit in the waiting room for a few minutes? There are magazines there. But Mama. Please, baby. Just for a little bit. Lila looked between Mama and Alessandro. She didn't want to leave, but she could tell this was important. She climbed down from the bed and walked slowly to the door. Alessandro followed her out and pointed to a chair in the hallway where she could see the door to Mama's room. Stay right there. Don't move. Lila nodded and sat down, hugging her teddy bear. Alessandro went back into the room and closed the door. Through the small window, Lila could see them talking. Mama's face looked scared. She was shaking her head, then nodding, then crying. Alessandro stood very still, listening carefully to everything she said. The conversation lasted a long time. When Alessandro finally came out, his face was grim and dark. He didn't say anything. He just walked past Lila and made a phone call in the hallway, his voice too quiet for her to hear. After a few minutes, he came back and gestured for Lila to go back into Mama's room. Mama pulled Lila close and held her tight, trembling slightly. "What's wrong, Mama?" Lila whispered. "Nothing, baby. Everything's going to be okay." But Mama's voice didn't sound like she believed it. Alessandro stood by the window, looking out at the city. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight. "The people who did this," he said without turning around, "they're called the Connie family. They're very powerful and very dangerous." "What did I see?" Mama asked quietly. Alessandro turned to face her. "You saw them kill someone. Someone important. And now they think you're a problem that needs to disappear." The room went very quiet. "What do we do?" Mama whispered. Alessandro's eyes were hard as stone. "You let me handle it. You and Lila stay here, stay safe, and let me do what I do best." "Which is?" Alessandro's smile was cold and sharp. "Make problems disappear." 3 days later, Mama was strong enough to leave the medical facility. Alessandro brought them back to his penthouse. He helped Mama walk slowly from the car to the elevator, one hand carefully supporting her arm. Lila held Mama's other hand, scared that if she let go, something bad might happen again. When the elevator doors opened to the penthouse, Mama stopped and stared. "This is where you live," she whispered. "For now, it's where you live too," Alessandro said. He'd prepared the guest bedroom for Mama, the one next to Lila's room. Someone had put fresh flowers on the nightstand and soft blankets on the bed. Mama sat down carefully, wincing as her wound pulled. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. I still don't understand why you're doing all this." Alessandro didn't answer. He just nodded and left the room. Over the next few days, something strange happened. The three of them started living together like a family, even though they weren't one. Alessandro went to work every morning, but he came home earlier than he used to. Lila could tell because he seemed surprised by it himself, checking his watch like he couldn't believe the time. Mama slowly got stronger. She started walking around the penthouse, then helping make meals even though Alessandro told her to rest. "I can't just sit around," she said. "I'll go crazy." Lila liked having both of them there. In the mornings, Mama made breakfast, real breakfast, not just cereal, and Alessandro sat at the table reading his phone. Sometimes Mama would put a plate in front of him, and he'd look surprised, like he'd forgotten people ate breakfast together. "You need to eat," Mama would say, and Alessandro would eat, even though Lila could tell he wasn't used to someone telling him what to do. One evening, Lila was playing with her dolls on the living room floor when she heard Mama and Alessandro talking in the kitchen. "I need to work," Mama was saying. "I can't just accept your charity forever. You're still healing. I'm strong enough to do something. Anything. I had 2 jobs before this happened. I need to take care of my daughter." There was a long silence. "I own a restaurant," Alessandro said finally. "Downtown. The manager position just opened up." Lila peeked around the corner. Mama was staring at Alessandro with her arms crossed. "You're making up a job for me." "No. I'm offering you a real job. The last manager stole from me. He's no longer employed." Something dark flickered across Alessandro's face. "You'd be managing staff, inventory, keeping the books clean. I need someone I can trust. You barely know me." "I know enough." Alessandro met her eyes. "You're smart, you're honest, and you don't scare easily. That's more than most people." Mama was quiet for a moment. "What kind of restaurant is it?" "Italian. High-end. We serve businessmen, politicians, tourists. Everything legitimate." He paused. "Well, everything that happens in the restaurant is legitimate. And what happens outside the restaurant?" Alessandro's jaw tightened. "Nothing you need to worry about. I have a daughter. I need to worry about everything. That's why you'll be safe. Because everyone will know you work for me." Lila didn't understand what they meant, but she could tell it was important. Mama finally nodded. "Okay, I'll try it. But I'm paying you rent. Alessandro looked like he wanted to argue, but he just said, "We'll discuss it." The next week, Mama started working at the restaurant. She left in the mornings after making sure Lila was settled, and came home in the evenings smelling like tomato sauce and garlic. Alessandro hired a nice lady named Rosa to watch Lila during the day. Rosa was old and round and spoke with an accent. She taught Lila how to make cookies and told her stories about growing up in Italy. But Lila's favorite time was evening, when all three of them were home. Mama would cook dinner, real Italian food she'd learned to make at the restaurant, and Alessandro would sit at the table, watching her move around his kitchen like she'd always belonged there. "You don't have to cook," he'd say. "I can order food. This is better. Real food, not restaurant food." "It is restaurant food. You work at a restaurant. You know what I mean." Lila would giggle, and both adults would look at her like they'd forgotten she was there. One night, about 2 weeks after Mama came home, something changed. They were finishing dinner when Mama suddenly said, "Christmas is in 10 days. Alessandro looked up from his plate. So Lila should have a Christmas. A real one." Mama looked at her daughter. "We've never had much, but we always had a tree and presents." "We can get a tree," Alessandro said carefully, like he was learning a new language. "Really?" Lila's eyes went wide. "Really?" The next evening, Alessandro came home with the biggest Christmas tree Lila had ever seen. It barely fit through the door. 2 men had to help him carry it in and set it up near the big windows. Mama laughed, really laughed, for the first time since the attack. "That's not a tree, that's a forest." Alessandro looked slightly embarrassed. The man at the lot said bigger is better. "For what, a shopping mall?" But Mama was smiling, and Alessandro's mouth twitched like maybe he wanted to smile too. They spent the evening decorating the tree. Alessandro had also bought boxes and boxes of ornaments. Way too many, and lights that sparkled like stars. Lila hung ornaments on the lower branches while Mama did the middle and Alessandro did the top, his tall frame reaching easily. He was very precise, making sure each ornament was perfectly spaced. "It doesn't have to be perfect," Mama said, amused. "Why would I do it if not perfectly?" "Because it's fun. Look at Lila." Alessandro looked. Lila had hung 5 ornaments on the same branch, all of them crooked. She was humming a Christmas song, completely happy. Something in his expression softened. "I suppose that's acceptable," he said quietly. When they finished, Alessandro turned off all the lights in the penthouse, except the tree. It glowed like magic, reflecting off the windows and the lake beyond. "It's beautiful," Mama whispered. She was standing close to Alessandro, close enough that their arms almost touched. Lila saw him glance down at her, saw something pass between them, something she was too young to understand but could still feel. Then Alessandro's phone rang, shattering the moment. He looked at the screen and his face went hard. "I need to take this." He walked into his office and closed the door. Through it, Lila could hear his voice, sharp, angry, dangerous. Mama's smile faded. She pulled Lila close. "Come on, baby. Let's get you ready for bed." As Mama tucked her in that night, Lila asked, "Is Alessandro going to stay with us?" Mama stroked her hair. "I don't know, sweetie. This isn't really our home. We're just visiting. But I like it here. I like him." "I know." Mama's voice was sad. "I do too. But Alessandro's life is complicated. Dangerous. We might not be able to stay." "Why not?" Mama kissed her forehead. "Because sometimes the safest thing is to leave before you get too attached." But Lila could tell from Mama's voice that it was already too late for that. For all of them. Later that night, Lila woke up thirsty. She climbed out of bed and padded quietly toward the kitchen. But she stopped when she heard voices in the living room. Mama and Alessandro were standing by the Christmas tree, talking in low voices. "They know about the restaurant," Alessandro was saying. "They know you work for me." "What does that mean?" Mama's voice trembled. "It means they're watching, looking for an opportunity." "Should we leave? Go somewhere else?" "No." Alessandro's voice was firm. "That's what they want, to isolate you. Here, you're protected. The restaurant is protected. My men are everywhere. I don't want to put you in danger. Alessandro stepped closer to her. You didn't put me anywhere. I chose this. Why? The question hung in the air. Alessandro didn't answer for a long moment. I don't know, he finally said. But I'm not walking away now. Mama reached up and touched his face gently. Alessandro went very still. Then he leaned down and kissed her. Lila didn't fully understand what she was seeing, but she knew it was important. She quietly went back to bed, a small smile on her face. Maybe they could be a real family after all. The restaurant was called Stella's, and it was the fanciest place Lila had ever seen. Mama brought her there one Saturday afternoon when Rosa was sick. The dining room had white tablecloths, crystal glasses, and paintings on the walls. Everything sparkled and smelled like fresh bread and wine. Stay close to me, Mama said, leading Lila to the back office. And don't touch anything. Lila sat in the corner of the office coloring while Mama worked on the computer, checking numbers and making phone calls. Through the window, Lila could see waiters moving between tables, carrying trays of food that looked like art. Everything seemed normal until a man walked in. He was tall and thin, wearing an expensive suit. He had slicked back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Two other men followed behind him, both big and mean-looking. You must be Rosalie, the thin man said. His voice was smooth like oil. I'm Vincent Conti. Mama stood up slowly. Her face went pale. We're closed for private events today. You'll need to come back another time. Oh, I'm not here to eat. Vincent's smile got wider. I'm here to deliver a message. One of the big men closed the office door behind them. Mama moved slightly, putting herself between Lila and the men. My daughter is here. Whatever you want to say it quickly and leave. Vincent's eyes slid to Lila in the corner. How sweet. Family is so important, isn't it? He looked back at Mama. That's actually what I wanted to talk about. You see, you witnessed something you shouldn't have. And now you've gotten cozy with Alessandro Boni. That's complicated. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. Vincent's voice turned cold. You saw my brother kill Marcus Delgado in that alley. You ran, and somehow you survived. Then Boni swooped in and made you his little project. Mama said nothing, but Lila could see her hands shaking. Here's the thing, Vincent continued, walking slowly around the office like he owned it. Alessandro is a problem for my family. He controls too much territory, has too much influence. We've been looking for a way to leverage him. And then you appeared. His weakness, wrapped up in a pretty package. I'm not his weakness. I'm just an employee. Vincent laughed, a cold, cruel sound. Please. My men have been watching. They see how he looks at you. How he rushes home every evening instead of working late. How he's pulled resources to protect this restaurant, your apartment building, even the route between them. He leaned close. You and that little girl have made Alessandro Boni soft. And soft men make mistakes. Mama's voice was barely a whisper. What do you want? I want you to deliver a message. Tell Alessandro he has two choices. He can give us the South Side territory and step back from the waterfront operations. Or, Vincent glanced at Lila again. Or we'll remind him why caring about people is dangerous. You're threatening my daughter. I'm simply explaining the situation. Suddenly, the office door burst open. Alessandro stood there, his face dark with rage. Behind him were three of his men, all armed. Get away from them, Alessandro said quietly. The quiet was somehow scarier than yelling. Vincent straightened his jacket, unfazed. Alessandro, we were just having a friendly conversation. Get out. Such hostility. And here I thought Italians valued hospitality. Vincent walked toward the door, his men following. As he passed Alessandro, he said, Think about my offer. You have until Christmas Eve. He pretended to count on his fingers. 5 days. Better decide quickly. After they left, Alessandro moved fast. He checked Mama over, his hands gentle but urgent. Did they hurt you? No. They just talked. Mama was shaking now, the fear finally catching up to her. Alessandro pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Then he looked at Lila, still sitting in the corner clutching her crayons. "Come here, Piccola," he said softly. Lila ran to him. He picked her up with one arm while keeping the other around Mama. "We're leaving. Now." He drove them back to the penthouse, not speaking, his jaw tight. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Once they were inside, he made 3 phone calls, each one short and sharp. Then he came to where Mama sat on the couch with Lila curled against her side. "I'm calling in every favor I have," Alessandro said. "The Conti family is powerful, but they're not untouchable. I'm meeting with the other families tomorrow. If we unite against them, they'll have to back down." "And if they don't?" Mama asked. Alessandro's face was grim. "Then there's war. I don't want people dying because of me. This isn't about you anymore. The Contis have been pushing boundaries for months. You're just the excuse they're using." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "But I promise you, I will not let them hurt you or Lila, even if it costs me everything." Mama's eyes filled with tears. "Why? Why risk so much for us?" Alessandro looked at her for a long moment. "Because for the first time in 20 years, I have something worth protecting." That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She could hear Mama crying quietly in her room. She could hear Alessandro on the phone in his office, his voice hard and cold as he made plans. She got up and walked to Alessandro's office. The door was open a crack. He sat at his desk, his head in his hands, looking more tired than she'd ever seen him. Lila pushed the door open. "Sandro." She'd started calling him that a few days ago, and he'd never corrected her. He looked up, surprised. "You should be sleeping. Are the bad men going to hurt us?" Alessandro stood and walked over to her. He picked her up, she was getting used to being carried by him, and sat back down with her in his lap. "No," he said firmly. "I won't let that happen. But there are lots of them, and only one of you. I have people who work for me, good people who will help." "Are you scared?" Alessandro paused. "No, but I am worried. Because you and your mama are important to me, and I'm not used to that." "Why not?" "Because I've spent most of my life alone. By choice. It was safer that way, for me and for everyone else. But you're not alone now." "No," Alessandro said quietly. "I'm not." Lila hugged him tight. "I'm glad you found us that night. In the snow." Alessandro's arms tightened around her. "So am I, Piccola. So am I." The next morning, Alessandro left early for his meeting with the other families. Mama paced the penthouse, anxious and restless. She kept looking out the windows like she expected the Conti men to appear. "It's going to be okay, Mama," Lila said, but she wasn't sure she believed it. "I hope so, baby." Alessandro came back late in the afternoon. His face was unreadable. "Well?" Mama asked immediately. "The families are divided. Half want to support me. The other half don't want to risk war with the Contis." He poured himself a drink. "I have enough backing to make a stand, but it's going to be close." "What happens on Christmas Eve?" "I meet with Vincent Conti. We negotiate. Either he backs down or—" Alessandro didn't finish the sentence. Mama wrapped her arms around herself. "Maybe Lila and I should leave. Go somewhere far away where they can't use us against you." "No." Alessandro set down his glass and crossed to her. "That's exactly what they want. To separate us, make us vulnerable. We're stronger together. I'm not strong. I'm a liability. You're the reason I'm fighting." Alessandro cupped her face in his hands. "You and Lila. You're the reason any of this matters." He kissed her then, deep and desperate. Lila looked away, feeling like she was seeing something private. When they finally pulled apart, Mama whispered, "I love you." Alessandro closed his eyes like the words hurt. "I love you too. Both of you. That's why I can't lose." That night, the 3 of them sat by the Christmas tree. They didn't talk much. They just sat together, holding on to each moment like it might be their last. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the city in white. Christmas Eve was 3 days away. The next 3 days felt like living in a dream that could turn into a nightmare at any moment. Alessandro barely slept. Lila would wake up in the middle of the night and see lights on in his office, hear his voice talking on the phone in Italian, fast and angry and commanding. During the day, men came and went from the penthouse. They wore nice suits and spoke in quiet voices, but Lila could tell they were dangerous. They looked at Alessandro like he was a king, and they were his soldiers. Mama tried to keep things normal for Lila. She made breakfast, played games, read stories. But her smile didn't reach her eyes, and her hands shook when she thought Lila wasn't looking. On the morning of Christmas Eve, the day of the meeting, Alessandro came out of his office looking exhausted but determined. He'd been up all night making final preparations. "I've arranged everything," he told Mama. "If the meeting goes badly, Marcus will take you and Lila to a safe house outside the city. New identities, new life. Everything you need." "No." Mama's voice was firm. "I'm not running. Rosalie." I said no. "We're not leaving you." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "You might not have a choice." "There's always a choice." Mama stepped close to him. "If you're standing and fighting, then so are we. We're a family now. Families don't abandon each other." Something flickered in Alessandro's eyes. Fear, love, pain all mixed together. He pulled Mama close and buried his face in her hair. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "Then don't lose." Lila watched from the doorway, clutching her teddy bear. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. Today was the day that would decide if they got to stay together or if everything fell apart. Alessandro knelt down and called her over. "Come here, Piccola." Lila ran to him. He hugged her tight. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "Today I have an important meeting. I'm going to fix everything so we can all be safe. But while I'm gone, you need to stay here with your mama and do exactly what she says." "Okay." "Okay," Lila whispered. "There are guards outside the door. If anything happens, anything at all, you go with them. They'll keep you safe. But what about you?" Alessandro smiled, but it was sad. "I'll be fine. I always am." He stood up and looked at Mama one more time. Then he kissed her, long and deep like he was memorizing the feeling. "Ti amo," he whispered. "I love you too," Mama said. "Come back to us." "I will. I promise." After Alessandro left, the penthouse felt too quiet. Mama tried to distract Lila by baking cookies, but she kept looking at the clock. Minutes dragged by like hours. "When will Sandro come home?" Lila asked. "I don't know, baby. Soon, I hope." They decorated the cookies with red and green frosting. Mama turned on Christmas music, but it felt wrong, too cheerful for how scared they both were. By late afternoon, Mama had given up pretending. She sat by the window, staring out at the city, her phone clutched in her hand. Lila climbed into her lap. "It's going to be okay, Mama." "How do you know?" "Because Sandro promised. And he always keeps his promises." Mama hugged her tight, tears sliding down her cheeks. The meeting was happening at a neutral location, an old warehouse by the docks that belonged to neither family. Alessandro arrived exactly on time, flanked by 6 of his best men. Vincent Conti was already there with twice as many men. He smiled when Alessandro walked in. "Right on time. I appreciate punctuality." "Let's skip the pleasantries," Alessandro said coldly. "You made demands. I'm here to give you my answer." "I'm listening." "No." Vincent's smile faded. "No. No to everything. No to the South Side. No to the waterfront. No to using innocent people as leverage." Alessandro's voice was hard as steel. "And if you or anyone in your family goes near Rosalie or her daughter again, I will personally make sure you regret it." Vincent laughed. Bold words for a man who's outnumbered. "Am I?" The warehouse doors opened. More men filed in, lots of them. They wore different colors, different styles, but they all stood behind Alessandro. Vincent's face went pale. "What is this?" "This is every major family in Chicago," Alessandro said. Moretti, Russo, DiMaggio, Chun, Volkov. They've all agreed that the Conti family has overstepped. That using civilians as weapons is beneath us. That threatening children crosses a line. An older man stepped forward. Tony Moretti, the most respected don in the city. "We've taken a vote, Vincent. The Contis either back down peacefully, or you'll be at war with all of us." Vincent looked around at the assembled men. He was trapped and he knew it. This is because of a woman? He spat at Alessandro. You're risking everything for some single mother and her brat? Alessandro moved so fast that Vincent didn't see it coming. His fist connected with Vincent's jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. That woman and her daughter are under my protection, Alessandro said quietly, dangerously. Insult them again, and you won't walk out of here. Two of Vincent's men moved forward, but Tony held up his hand. Let him up. Let's finish this properly. Vincent stood, wiping blood from his mouth. His eyes burned with hatred, but he was beaten and he knew it. Fine, he hissed. We'll leave the woman alone, and we'll stay out of your territories. Not good enough, Alessandro said. I want it in writing. A formal agreement, witnessed by all the families here. You and your people never touch Rosalie Martinez or Lila Martinez. Ever. If you do, you answer to everyone in this room. Vincent's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Fine. They drew up the agreement right there, a simple document that all the family heads signed. It wasn't just a promise. It was a blood oath, the kind that couldn't be broken without consequences. When it was done, Alessandro folded the document carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. One more thing, he said to Vincent. I'm out. Everyone in the warehouse went silent. What? Vincent said. I'm leaving the life. Retiring. As of tonight, I'm just a businessman who owns restaurants and property. Alessandro looked at Tony Moretti. We discussed this. My territories will be divided among the families fairly. In exchange, Rosalie, Lila, and I are completely out. Untouchable. Forever. Tony nodded slowly. Agreed. It's time for new blood anyway. Vincent stared at Alessandro like he'd lost his mind. You're giving up everything? For them. No, Alessandro said quietly. I'm gaining everything. When Alessandro walked through the penthouse door at 8 o'clock that night, Mama and Lila ran to him. He caught them both, holding them so tight it almost hurt. It's done, he said into Mama's hair. It's over. You're safe. We're all safe. Mama pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Really? They agreed. Alessandro pulled out the document and showed her. It's official. Signed by every family in Chicago. No one can touch you. And I'm out of the life completely. You gave up everything for us? I gave up nothing. I gained everything. Lila squeezed between them, her little arms wrapping around both their legs. Does this mean we can stay together? Alessandro picked her up. Forever, Piccola. If your mama will have me. He looked at Mama. Rosalie Martinez, I know we've only known each other for a few weeks. I know this is crazy and fast and probably not smart. But I love you. I love Lila. Will you marry me? Mama laughed and cried at the same time. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. They stood there in the middle of the penthouse, holding each other, while the Christmas tree lights twinkled behind them. Outside, church bells began to ring. It was midnight. Christmas Day had arrived. And for the first time in longer than any of them could remember, everything was exactly as it should be. Lila woke up on Christmas morning to the smell of pancakes and something she hadn't felt in a long time. Complete happiness. She jumped out of bed and ran to the living room. Mama was in the kitchen wearing one of Alessandro's big shirts, flipping pancakes and humming a Christmas song. Alessandro sat at the table drinking coffee, his hair messy for the first time since Lila had met him. He looked relaxed, peaceful. Merry Christmas, baby. Mama called out, her face glowing with joy. Merry Christmas. Lila ran to Alessandro first. He picked her up and kissed her forehead. Buon Natale, Piccola. Did you sleep well? Yes. Is it really over? Are the bad people really gone? Really and truly. No more bad people. Just us. Mama brought over a plate stacked high with pancakes shaped like Christmas trees. She'd used strawberries and whipped cream to decorate them. It was the most beautiful breakfast Lila had ever seen. They ate together, laughing and talking. Alessandro told stories about Christmas in Italy when he was little, before his parents died. Mama talked about the tiny apartment where she'd grown up, how her mother would make tamales every Christmas Eve. After breakfast, Alessandro pointed to the Christmas tree. I believe someone left presents there last night. Lila gasped. She'd been so worried about Alessandro coming home that she'd forgotten about presents. She ran to the tree and found several wrapped boxes with her name on them. She opened them one by one. There was a new doll with beautiful curly hair like hers. A set of art supplies with real paints and brushes. Books with colorful pictures. Warm pajamas with snowflakes on them. And finally, a small box that held a delicate gold necklace with a tiny star charm. It's beautiful, Lila whispered. Alessandro knelt beside her. The star is because you're our Stella, our star. You led me out of the darkness. Lila hugged him tight around the neck. I love you, Sandro. She felt him freeze for just a moment. Then his arms wrapped around her, holding her close. I love you too, Piccolina. So very much. Mama opened her presents next. Alessandro had gotten her a soft cashmere sweater, expensive perfume, and a leather journal. But the last gift made her cry. A framed photo of the three of them that had been taken a few days ago by the Christmas tree. They looked like a real family. When did you have time to frame this? Mama asked through her tears. I have people. Alessandro smiled. Had people. I'm still getting used to being a normal person. You'll never be normal, Mama teased. But I love you anyway. Alessandro's gift from Mama was simpler. A watch she'd saved up to buy from the restaurant money she'd earned. It wasn't as expensive as the things he owned, but when he put it on, he looked at it like it was made of gold. It's perfect, he said softly. Thank you. They spent the morning in their pajamas, watching Christmas movies and eating too many cookies. Alessandro sat on the couch with Mama tucked under his arm, and Lila sprawled across both their laps. The outside world felt far away. Around noon, Alessandro's phone rang. He looked at it and frowned. I should take this. It's Tony Moretti. He stepped into his office. Mama tensed, the old fear creeping back into her eyes. It's okay, Lila said, patting her hand. Sandro said it's over. He promised. I know, baby. Old habits die hard. Alessandro came back a few minutes later, looking thoughtful. Tony wanted to wish me Merry Christmas, and to confirm that the paperwork for my exit is being filed. By New Year's, I'll officially be out. How do you feel about that? Mama asked carefully. Alessandro sat back down, pulling them both close. Relieved. For 20 years, I lived in that world. Always watching my back, always calculating risks, never trusting anyone completely. I'm tired of it. I want this instead. I want quiet mornings and pancakes and Christmas movies. I want to come home to people who love me, not fear me. We do love you, Mama said. So much. Then I'm the richest man in the world. That evening, they decided to go for a walk. The city was quiet on Christmas night, most people inside with their families. Snow had fallen again, covering everything in fresh white. Alessandro bundled Lila up in her warmest coat and her Santa hat, the same one she'd been wearing the night they met. Mama wore the new scarf Alessandro had given her. They walked through the neighborhood, looking at Christmas lights. Lila held both their hands, swinging between them. When she jumped, they'd lift her up off the ground, making her giggle. Again. They passed families through windows, eating dinner, opening presents, laughing together. For the first time, Alessandro didn't feel like an outsider looking in. He had his own family now. They stopped in front of a small church. Light glowed from inside, and they could hear people singing carols. Want to go in? Mama asked. Alessandro hesitated. I haven't been in a church since I was a boy. Maybe it's time. They went inside. The church was small and warm, decorated with poinsettias and candles. A choir was singing Silent Night, while families sat in the wooden pews. They slipped into a back row. Lila sat between them, her eyes wide as she looked around at all the beauty. The stained glass windows, the nativity scene, the enormous tree by the altar. As the choir sang, Alessandro felt something shift inside him. For so many years he'd been hard and cold, his heart locked away where no one could reach it. But sitting here with Rosalie's hand in his and Lila's head resting against his arm, He felt that coldness melting away. He'd spent his whole life trying to be untouchable, unreachable, alone. He'd thought that was strength. But this, loving them, being loved by them, having something worth protecting, this was real strength. This was what he'd been missing all along. When the service ended, they walked slowly back to the penthouse. The city sparkled with lights, and snow continued to fall softly from the dark sky. "This is the best Christmas I've ever had," Lila announced. "Mine too," Mama agreed. Alessandro nodded. "Mine too." Without question. Back at the penthouse, they changed into pajamas and made hot chocolate. They sat by the Christmas tree one more time, just enjoying being together. "Sandro," Lila asked sleepily, curled up in his lap. "Yes, Piccolina? Will you tell me a story? About when you were little?" Alessandro thought for a moment. Most of his childhood memories were painful, but there were a few good ones before everything fell apart. "My mother used to sing to me," he said quietly. "On Christmas Eve, she'd tuck me in and sing old Italian lullabies. Her voice was beautiful. Will you sing one for me?" Alessandro looked uncomfortable. "I don't have a good voice." "Please." He sighed but began to sing softly in Italian, a gentle melody about stars and dreams and finding your way home. His voice was rough and uncertain, but it was full of love. By the time he finished, Lila was asleep. Mama had tears in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "She looks so peaceful," Alessandro said, gazing down at Lila. "So safe. I want her to always feel this way. No fear, no danger, just loved. She will. We both will. Because we have you." Alessandro carried Lila to her bed and tucked her in carefully, making sure her teddy bear was beside her. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching her sleep. Mama came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. "You're going to be an amazing father." "I hope so. I never thought I'd have this chance." "Well, you do now. We're yours, Alessandro Boni. Forever." He turned and pulled her close, kissing her deeply. "And you're mine. Both of you. My family." They stood there in the quiet penthouse, holding each other while snow fell outside and the Christmas tree lights glowed softly behind them. It was the first day of their new life. And it was perfect. 3 weeks after Christmas, Alessandro and Rosalie got married. It was a small ceremony in the same little church where they'd listened to carols on Christmas night. Only a few people were there: Rosa, who had become like a grandmother to Lila, a few of Alessandro's former associates who had become real friends, and Tony Moretti, who had helped make their new life possible. Lila was the flower girl. She wore a white dress with pink flowers and carried a basket of rose petals. She took her job very seriously, carefully dropping petals along the aisle like Mama had shown her. Mama looked like a princess in a simple cream-colored dress. She didn't have a fancy veil or a long train, but she was the most beautiful bride Lila had ever seen. And Sandro, looked happier than Lila thought possible. He wore a dark suit and couldn't stop smiling as Mama walked down the aisle toward him. When the priest said they were married, Alessandro kissed Mama, and everyone clapped. Lila ran up and hugged them both. "We're a real family now," she announced. Alessandro picked her up. "We've been a real family since the moment you crashed into me in the snow, Piccola. This just makes it official." After the ceremony, they had dinner at Stella's restaurant. Mama had closed it for the evening, so they could celebrate privately. The staff had decorated everything with white flowers and candles. Tony Moretti raised his glass for a toast. "To Alessandro Boni, the smartest man I know. He figured out what the rest of us are still learning. That power and money mean nothing if you have no one to share them with. May your new life be filled with peace and joy." "Salute!" everyone called out. Alessandro stood, holding his own glass. "Thank you all for being here. For the past 20 years, I lived in shadows. I thought that was my fate, to be alone, to be feared, to never trust anyone. But then," he looked down at Lila, then at Rosalie. "Then a little girl in a Santa hat told me her mother needed help. And everything changed." His voice got thick with emotion. "I don't know what good thing I did to deserve this second chance. But I promise I won't waste it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure these two know how loved they are." Mama was crying happy tears. Lila climbed into Alessandro's lap and hugged him tight. After dinner, there was cake and dancing. Alessandro danced with Mama while everyone watched. Then he danced with Lila, letting her stand on his shoes so she could reach. "Are you happy, Sandro?" Lila asked as they swayed to the music. "Happier than I've ever been." "Me too. I'm glad Mama got stabbed." Alessandro nearly stumbled. "What?" "I mean, I'm not glad she got hurt. That was scary. But if it didn't happen, we never would have met you. So something good came from something bad." Alessandro was quiet for a moment. Then he hugged her tighter. "You're a very wise little girl, you know that? Mama says I get it from her." He laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made his whole face light up. "I'm sure you do." The months that followed were the happiest of Lila's life. They moved out of the penthouse and into a real house in a quiet neighborhood. It had a yard with a tree perfect for climbing and a porch where they could sit on summer evenings. Mama planted flowers in the garden. Alessandro put up a swing set for Lila. Alessandro started working normal hours at his restaurants. He owned 3 now, all legitimate businesses. He came home for dinner every night. He helped Lila with her homework. He and Mama would cook together, laughing and stealing kisses when they thought Lila wasn't looking. On weekends, they did normal family things. They went to the zoo. They had picnics in the park. They visited museums. Alessandro had never done any of these things before, and he approached each new experience with careful wonder, like he was learning how to be a regular person. "Am I doing this right?" he'd ask Mama quietly when they were feeding ducks at the pond or building sandcastles at the beach. "There's no right way," she'd tell him. "Just be yourself. That's all we need." Lila started kindergarten in the fall. On her first day, both Mama and Alessandro walked her to school. Alessandro looked more nervous than Lila felt. "What if the other kids aren't nice to her?" he worried. "Then she'll learn to handle it," Mama said calmly. "We can't protect her from everything." "I can try." Mama laughed and kissed his cheek. "You're a good papa." Papa. The word still sounded strange to Alessandro, but he was getting used to it. Lila had started calling him that a month after the wedding, and his face had done something complicated, happy and sad and overwhelmed all at once. That first day of school, Lila ran out at pickup time full of stories about her new friends and her teacher and the playground. Alessandro relaxed, relieved that his little girl was safe and happy. One evening in late November, almost a year after that snowy night when everything changed, Lila found Alessandro sitting alone on the back porch. He was staring out at the yard, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about, Papa?" Lila climbed into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it. "Just remembering," he said softly. "Remembering what?" "A year ago, I was a different person. Angry, alone, empty. I had money and power, but I had nothing that mattered." He wrapped his arms around her. "And then you appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. Mama says you saved us." "No, Piccolina. You saved me. You and your mama. You gave me a reason to be better, to want more than just survival." "Do you miss your old life?" "Being important and scary." Alessandro thought about it. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of it. Everything was clear, threats, problems, solutions. But I don't miss being empty. And that's what I was before you. Empty." Mama came out with 3 mugs of hot chocolate. She handed them out and sat in the chair next to them. "What are we talking about?" she asked. "How different everything is now," Alessandro said. "Good different or bad different?" He pulled her close with his free arm, so he was holding both of them. "The best different. A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be living in a house with a yard, married with a daughter, going to parent-teacher conferences and worrying about playground safety, I would have laughed, or had them killed for wasting my time." "Alessandro." Mama swatted his arm. "I'm joking. Mostly." He smiled. "But it's true. I couldn't have imagined this life. And now I can't imagine any other life." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set. The air was getting cold again. Winter was coming back around. Soon it would be Christmas again, their second one together. Can we get an even bigger tree this year? Lila asked. Impossible, Mama said. Last year's tree barely fit through the door. I'll make it fit, Alessandro said. Whatever you want, Piccolina. Careful, Mama warned. Keep spoiling her, and she'll be impossible by the time she's a teenager. Good. Let her be impossible. Let her be confident and fearless and know she's loved beyond measure. Later that night, after Lila was asleep, Alessandro and Rosalie stood in her doorway watching her sleep, just like they did every night. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if she hadn't run into you that night? Rosalie whispered. Alessandro was quiet for a moment. I try not to, because I think I know. I would have continued down that path until someone killed me or I became so cold that I was barely human anymore. Instead, you became the most human person I know. He turned to her. I still have darkness in me, you know. I still think like I used to sometimes. When someone's rude to you or to Lila, my first instinct is still to. I know, Rosalie said gently. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. That darkness protected you for years. It kept you alive long enough to find us. I just ask that you choose light when you can. Choose us. Every time. Every single time. They went to their own room and lay in bed together, wrapped in each other's arms. Thank you, Alessandro whispered into the darkness. For what? For trusting me that night. For not running away when you found out who I was. For giving me a chance to be more than what I'd been. Rosalie kissed him softly. Thank you for keeping your promise. For saving me, for protecting Lila, for being the man I knew you could be. I love you, Rosalie Boney. I love you too. Outside, snow began to fall, the first snow of the season. It covered the yard in quiet white, just like it had that night a year ago when a little girl in a Santa hat crashed into a dangerous man and changed both their lives forever. 5 years later. Lila was 9 years old now, tall and confident and full of life. She had a little brother named Marco who was 3, with his father's dark hair and his mother's warm smile. It was Christmas Eve again. The house smelled like Mama's cooking and fresh pine from the enormous tree in the living room. Even bigger than last year's, just like Lila had requested. Alessandro came through the door carrying bags of last-minute groceries, Marco riding on his shoulders. He wasn't the cold, dangerous man he'd once been. He laughed easily now, smiled often, and wore his heart on his sleeve. Papa, come see the cookies I decorated, Lila called out. Alessandro set Marco down and went to admire Lila's work, elaborately frosted cookies shaped like snowmen and stars and reindeer. Bellissimi, he said, kissing the top of her head. The most beautiful cookies in all of Chicago. You say that every year. Because it's true every year. Rosalie came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. Dinner's almost ready. Then presents. Then presents, Alessandro agreed. As they gathered around the table that evening, Mama, Papa, Lila, and little Marco, Alessandro looked at each of their faces and felt overwhelming gratitude. He thought back to that snowy December night 5 years ago. The night a terrified 4-year-old girl had grabbed his coat and said words that changed everything. Sir, my mom was stabbed in an alley. He'd been drowning in darkness, and she'd pulled him into the light. He'd been empty, and they'd filled him with love. He'd been lost, and they'd brought him home. What are you thinking about, Papa? Lila asked, noticing his faraway expression. Alessandro smiled and pulled his family close. Just thinking about how lucky I am, he said, and how grateful I am for little girls in Santa hats who aren't afraid to ask scary men for help. Lila grinned. Best decision I ever made. Mine too, Piccolina. Mine too. Outside, snow fell softly on the quiet street, covering everything in white. Inside, the Boney family celebrated Christmas together, surrounded by warmth and light and love. And Alessandro Boney, once Chicago's most feared enforcer, now simply a husband and father, knew he had finally found the one thing his money and power never could have bought. He'd found home. The end. Thank you so much for reading Alessandro, Rosalie, and Lila's story. If this Christmas tale touched your heart, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel. It would truly be the best Christmas gift you could give me. Your support means everything and helps me create more heartwarming stories like this one. Each subscription tells me that these stories matter, that they're reaching people and making a difference, and that encourages me to keep writing and sharing tales of hope, love, and second chances. So please hit that subscribe button and join our growing family of story lovers. Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones. May your holidays be filled with warmth, joy, and the kind of love that changes everything.